Today is the 2nd of July, 2022. Thanks for tuning in to my official YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to my official YouTube channel, like my official YouTube videos, and if you're gonna leave a comment, make sure to have etiquette and respect. Also, go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com, which is the same as www.ladydorybell.com. And so in my journal blog, The Ornery PSA, on my website, www.susanmeeling.com, again, the same as www.ladydorybell.com, I had put some semi-ish instructions for, I guess, the irony of a pre-time to when a video clip in the information section, I guess in a different capacity, a little bit of however you want to put it. And so there's going to be a few video links in the information section, so that way you have the capability of seeing which videos assisted in the more specific time frame to this particular official YouTube video of mine. So I have a few references before I get into what I was going to go into and make it kind of work together a bit. As if you have listened to my official YouTube videos before for that understanding. So there's again, referring to the links that'll be in the information section, there's the knowledge as to the current President of the United States of America, 46, Joe Biden, and how some people have known that there was a bicycle situation where kind of, I don't know how that happened. I know that in some areas of walkways or crosswalks, they have certain ridges, and maybe the speed in that reference was an issue or whatever it just so happened to be. I deal with vertigo issues after my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, where I deal with headaches and migraines mainly, and I've dealt with memory deficits and cognitive disorders, as well as having went from college algebra with trigonometry and calculus, though also geometry and all of that in the AP way for my classes, as well as my studies to second grade math. And so I guess in some ways that's a bit of that memory deficit, because I was actually in community college at the same time of being in high school, and I was in geometry in college at the same time of being in high school because of working towards graduating early and making up classes because I had attended a Catholic parochial high school. And even though there was the block scheduling, because of how the public school system in Illinois didn't know how to process the block school system, which actually by their standards in that school, I actually had graduated by technicalities the year before. And so because I had graduated the year before because of the block scheduling and how it was a huge mess as far as the education system going from New Jersey to Illinois, and then all of the class requirements and prerequisites. And so my biological mother, being that type where she knew she was going to be an empty nester, did all this sort of needless drama sort of stuff, as anybody who understands that would be capable to take a look at in that hypothetical, if you're capable to. So there was a point in time in the year of 2018 or 2019, I think it might have been 2019, I was driving my son from one area to another, and I had been at a red light, and I looked over to the side, and something caught my attention, and I saw that there was a guy who, in comparison to 46 being on a bicycle, was on a motorcycle. And so I put my car in park, and I said, "Hold on a second, handsome, I'll be right back." And my son, being a teenager looking at his cell phone, he was just, "Okay, what are you gonna do?" "I'll be right back." So I get out of my car, and I look at this guy, and I'm like, "Hey, do you mind if I, help you with that?" And there's 2 or 3 males, all right? There's the motorcyclist, and then 2 or 3 people that are working to try to pick up this motorcycle. And I was like, do you mind if I assist with that? And the guy's like, yeah, sure. And it's like, all right, here you go. Have a good day. Get back in the car. I have no idea who that motorcycle rider, whatever, was. And my son looks over at me and he's like, Mom. And I'm like, what? The light turned green. I put the car in drive and started driving. And he goes, Mom. And I go, what? And he goes, do you know what you just did? And I was like, I'm driving. Like, it's one of those, what? And he's like, you just picked up a motorcycle. I mean, whatever. In comparison to a bicycle now in the year 2022, whatever. I mean, yeah, I guess I could compare that now. A bicycle, okay, it probably wasn't that big of a deal in comparison to a motorcycle, but okay, whatever, I mean, I don't know how to ride a motorcycle. What I do know when it comes to motorcycles, though, is I don't ride them or drive them because I know myself. And so he had freaked out about it. It's like, I asked permission before I touched his motorcycle, so don't freak out. It's not that big of a deal. Then again, he had also freaked out because I had packed a pack of cigarettes when I was still smoking cigarettes off of my steering wheel. And again, he was just, Mom, what? What'd I do? And he's like, you're shaking the vehicle by packing your cigarettes. So, what? What's the big deal? It was, in my defense, it was a Soul, okay, it was a Kia Soul, whatever. And he was, no, you are moving the car by packing a pack of cigarettes. So I got out of the car, fine, I'll just go pack the cigarettes on the ground if that's that big of a deal. So then at that point, when you think about this, if I could move a car while packing cigarettes, what's the big deal as far as me picking up a motorcycle? If you really think about the size difference, in my defense, in the technical viewpoint, the motorcycle will be the equivalent of a bicycle compared to my vehicle being kind of like a motorcycle by technicalities. So, perspective, okay? I'm just saying, by technicalities, weight, distortion, ratio, whatever the words are, it is what it is. What's the big deal? So, I dated a guy at one point in time who actually had motorcycles. And I had told him I don't ride motorcycles, and he got all about it. And it was like, no, you don't understand. It's safer for people that I don't ride motorcycles. And he was, why would it be safer for people if you don't ride motorcycles? And so I explained, well, there's no bubble of protection on a motorcycle, and there are stupid drivers. And so I have this viewpoint where I kind of get a little bit momish. And so if I see people, and I know that some people might have issues with this, whatever, if I see certain types of drivers and they're, a little too whatever when it comes to motorcycles, mind you, I did not remember my biological father actually had a motorcycle. And so it's like, because of this and this and this, I'm gonna go and do this just because I know how certain whatever, and I know my car because I know how to maintain my car. So I make sure that no matter what, as best as I can, I'm a little bit of a mom. I get it, that's fine. And he was like, well, what does that have to do with riding motorcycles? Well, see, because they're stupid drivers. That's my problem. Because I know my temper as well. And so I gave this one example of one time I had ridden on what I call a bitch bike. It's also known as a crotch rocket, okay? Or I think it was the Ninja model. And I had told this guy, do not drive above 30 miles or 35 miles an hour. And he was, oh, ho, ho, ho. And so I got on the motorcycle because he tried to convince me, whatever. And when it got above 30, 35 miles an hour, I started squeezing harder around his rib cage. I went from, just whatever to, and then as it continued, I just started squeezing, like a corset, just with my arms instead. And this is before my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. And so, get back to the house and stuff like that. A bunch of people are there. He's like, what's wrong with you? Because I get off the bike and he's all, what's wrong with you? Bitch. Now, mind you, I didn't know it was called a bitch bike yet. Okay. Maybe I coined the term because of that. And this guy's all, I can't believe you squeezed my ribs that hard. Did you go above 35 miles an hour? How could you? Now he didn't know I in some hypotheticals that I have raced vehicles. So, in that capacity, what's up, Cook County, Illinois? How you guys doing? Farmland area and stuff. Near, was it Spring Hill Mall or whatever? I'm just, whatever. What's up, you guys? Different hair color, different hairstyle, I know. And obviously I got tattoos now. I used to just wear jeans and a t-shirt, and usually a tank top. Usually I wore a tank top with a sports bra, for those who remember, and then I usually just had my hair in a ponytail, dark brown hair, whatever, usually boot cut jeans and sneakers, for those who might remember back in hypothetically 1998 and hypothetically 1999 summertime. Hypothetically, but what's up? Technically the sky. So, in that hypothetical aspect, because, just saying, because, so, motorcycle. And so, and I had explained to this guy that I had dated, I was all like, yeah, no, I can't do that because I know what would happen, and now I had, the head injury, and so I used the example of vertigo and, balance issues and stuff like that. And he was, yeah, well, and he got all kind of weird about it, and it's like, whatever, besides, now mind you, we had already been to the Gulf of Mexico and I've already handled stuff. So I'm just like, yeah, no, it's totally so much safer. I'm kind of a bit of a mom. I'm a smidgen protective, and it's just, so how you caught a poofy fish? And he was like, yeah, and it's like, yeah, so, you remember when, Jeff was near the nurse shark that was hiding in the cavern area of the coral reef? And he's like, yeah, I kind of saw that. And it's like, yeah, so, that's sort of, but on land, so, whatever. And he's like, what does a shark hiding have anything to do with why you don't ride on motorcycles? Well, I already explained that there's stupid drivers on the road, so, there are these things called stoplights, and in comparison to this individual who, here you go, here's your motorcycle, Well, it's a good, yes, there's insurance, okay? There is insurance. And he's like, yeah, what does motorcycle insurance have anything to do with that? Well, they probably haven't had that type of a insurance claim. I don't know if they'd even get one in some references. And he was, well, why? You know, it's no big deal. It's cool. It's cool. It's cool. It's cool. So then I made an attempt to be like, okay, you know, I can, okay, hey, what can so I look around his garage and stuff, and I'm like, do you mind if I go over here and pick up this, so it was like a 2-story type of tool chest that had wheels, right? And he was like, yeah, what about it? And I'm like, so, you know, huh? And he's like, why did you move that? You know what? Later in 2011, my biological father asks if I had ever, you know, done the juju juice, because he found out that I had my nitrox scuba diving certification. I don't know if he did the juju juice, and that's what that reference was. He found out, my biological father found out that I had done nitrox in the United States of America regarding my Vandenberg scuba dive, and he was like, oh, okay, so you didn't do it in another country? No, why? Just making sure you didn't do the juju juice. What does the juju juice have? And so I wrote about this and told some people about it before I wrote about it in regards to finding the silver lining. Possibly, it might be in Finding a Silver Lining in my book section on my website, www.susanmuling.com, which is the same as www.ladydoribell.com, with the links to Amazon to purchase the books. And so, you know, I don't know what I don't know. I mean, I literally just, you know, the homeowners association president, as far as across the street in my first house in San Antonio, he got the memo when I picked up that 6 to 8 tier rototiller. Was just like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I know that there's I don't know what it's called in a gym, since, you know, Greg Gutfeld has written fitness magazine articles and stuff, but there's something in regards of whatever this is with the machine. What? You know, sort of. Granted, I didn't know about Greg Gutfeld at that point in time in 2004, I think it was. So, you know, it's cool. It's cool. But this guy, he didn't understand, and it's like, you know what? I can have a temper every now and then. If I get upset, I can have a temper. And usually I'm correct when I get upset, and yet, you know, it's just, you know, think of it as a bubble of protection for everybody else. That's the stupid driver in comparison. And that's why I don't drive motorcycles. And he was just, okay, that doesn't make any sense. You know what? Maybe one day it will. Maybe. So I went to this thing called an Excalibur Fair, or it's also known as a Renaissance Fair, in the year 2005. I've discussed this in prior official YouTube videos of mine. Make sure to like my official YouTube videos, share the links to my official YouTube videos to the links from my official YouTube channel. And if you're gonna leave a comment, make sure to have etiquette and respect. And so I had this situation, it only took me one event. So it was a 2-day, or it was the 3-day, 2-night event. And it was enough for me to be like, yeah, so by technicalities, 3, by technicalities, attempts. And I couldn't, I just couldn't. I couldn't deal with it, you know, I didn't understand it. And so the United States of America was founded by people who were like, no, your your equivalent of, in a more modern time frame for this year, 2022, your bureaucracy and your hypocrisy is a disgrace. And so we would rather get on some boats, you know, before there's motorized engines, go across what we don't know how that could be, whatever. We're just gonna go into the area of the oceanic waters, and we're just gonna go until, you know what, because you are that bleh, you know, and so this is safer, in our opinion, to just go do that in comparison to dealing with your bureaucracy and hypocrisy. Because, and so, but we're Puritans. You know, I'm paraphrasing in a more modern way, just for clarification. You know, and we, you know, find your bureaucracy and your hypocrisy to be And so we would rather go out upon the oceanic waters, don't know what the weather's gonna do, but you know what? We're gonna pack into these boats because it's better than what you got going on. And so, you know, however, whatever length of time it takes us to row from wherever, in regards of, to out to where, you know, whatever. And whatever we deal with is whatever, because in comparison to you as far as all your whatever of whatever, this is better, all right? You just keep that in mind. Because you're that way, that's to that level. We have morals, we have ethics, and we have standards. And you want to try to claim that you do. I don't think so. Let's get on the boats. Yeah, let's go, you know, 14, 13, whatever, 100, whatever. Let's go because you are just to that level. Just and you know, before that, you can just talk to the hand, alright? Because no. And so, these boats that have sails of whatever, yeah, no. We will do that instead. Because why would we? No, just think about your personality traits. As a conglomerate, all right? This is what we'd rather do. We would rather kind of just be like this in boats together and just kind of, no, whatever, we'll make it work. We'll do what we got to do, all right? Because that's better. That's better, all right? Because we'll just be like this and whatever, and like, you know, the possibilities of whatever, and we'll just go do that over here. And then whenever we land, as far as whatever, we'll figure it out, because, you know, what do you know? The oceanic waters are calmer than being on land with you. All right, you just think about that, all right? You and your eyes. Don't care what like the time it takes either. Yeah, we'll figure out food on our own. All right? You and you call yourselves with your bureaucracy, your hypocrisy, your savagery, and your heathenic ways. We will go out on the oceanic waters where we're at the whim of what the ocean does in comparison to you. What you got? That's right. Just go do that because we're just that badass, but we have morals and ethics, damn it, all right? And so we will bring our scientific advances and what is yet to become technology with us as a peace offering and assist where we can, and, you know, despite certain other things, you know, make the best as far as what we could do, and we'll do that. compared to you, all right? That's what you are. So I went out to this Renaissance fair called Excalibur Fair. Had no idea. I thought it was like medieval times, but I hadn't ever been to medieval times. It's not like medieval times. Okay, so it's in 2005. I don't know if even at that point in time, it's been 5 years since my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. Which if it's not even 5 years from the time frame of my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000 when I was in basic training, then it's obviously less time since I woke up from my coma after my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. I still had the subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain, very capable and easy to see in both MRIs and CAT scans. I actually didn't start getting I don't know which one I got first more often. I think it was MRIs that I got more often, and then as the time progressed is when I started having CAT scans because of the injection, as far as the coloring or something like that, to see more clearly because of how it was dissipating in regards of the imaging. And so because it wasn't dissipating in what was considered a normal way, and so because of the way the subarachnoid hemorrhage was moving or however it was, the neurologists they hadn't ever seen anything like that before. And so, you know, a bit of a scientific anomaly to a degree, because usually the what is also known as an aneurysm, but because of the type of injury that I had and then the way the blood formation had formed, that's why I was explained, or that's what was explained to me as to why it's called a subarachnoid hemorrhage. And so that whole kit and caboodle, so I go out, people that I met in the San Antonio pagan community, either in the year of 2004 or that year in 2005, that's where I met these people as far as that's concerned. So Dawn and Jackie had worked at Chase Bank off of I-410 and I-90 in San Antonio. So for those who know where Lackland is from 410 and I-90, instead of going to the left, you go to the right. And so that's the area as far as that particular is a main location. It kind of looked a little bit like Prudential-ish, but not as far as some degree. And so that's where they had worked, and then Jackie's brother was named John. And so they had been a part of this Renaissance fair stuff, and I had never heard of it. My biological mother's like, oh, TRF is great, and SCA, and they're like, oh yeah, and I'm just, what? So there's obviously a difference between historical reenactment, which goes off of factual based situations, compared to this Rennie, as someone informed me, they're called Rennies for short, or Renaissance fair types. And so these Rennies, and I learned this term in 2020, this whole time I would just say Renaissance fair or whatever, as far as that's concerned. So these Rennies, as far as the situations I dealt with, were just like the way that went. So afterwards, so I deal with headaches and migraines. And when it comes to certain types of migraines, there are different types of migraines. And I don't have just the standard type of migraines. I also have what's called ice pick migraines. So out of whatever, I could have whatever headache, and then I have what has the sensation of an ice pick migraine. And so then I have issues speaking, because when that pain strike is, anybody who's dealt with chronic pain, it is as it is. So these, I couldn't handle what occurred because I couldn't believe as to the amount of. So when I got back to San Antonio, I spent from 2005 all the way through 2008. I didn't care if I could bring that, if they talked about certain things that would remind me of, I would go into the situations in reference to Excalibur Fair and the Renaissance Fair and all that sort of stuff, because I was like, no, because it's after the year 2001. and the attacks on the 11th of September. I was born and raised in New Jersey. I grew up going around the tri-state area of New York, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. And so after the 1993 attack, when people started coming back after some of the stuff that had occurred, it was one of those, no, 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 no. I am in favor of the Second Amendment with intelligence. I am. And so I don't know if New York State or Pennsylvania State have these Renaissance fairs or not. I don't know. I didn't go to them. I didn't grow up with that. I had grown up with historical reenactments because of being part of the 13 original colonies, as well as Old Tenet Presbyterian Church having been used as a hospital during the Revolutionary War. So there were certain things that had occurred. I know the difference. There's a huge in comparison to that sort of stuff as far as those Rennie types. So I learned that term Rennie in 2020 when I was spending some time with some individuals that I had met at some of the for Trump supporters in that time frame, which I didn't hide that I had, well, first and foremost, I had never hidden that I'm a Republican. And so looking as I physically do when it comes to the 2008 election, I dealt with a bunch of people that thought that just because of how I physically look, their opinion as to how they thought I should vote. The amount of people in the year of 2008 through 2012 that learned that I was a Republican is what some Kat Timpf and Kennedy had described in regards of them coming out as Trump supporters. The difference being I had been a Republican since I could first vote officially. And so, you know, they understand in quite a few capacities. And so this situation went the way it did. My son and I wound up in Washington State, and that was after what occurred in regards of my daughter at Carrollton Farmers Branch Independent School District regarding McCoy Elementary School in Carrollton, Texas. And a bunch of people didn't take me seriously. When it came to that, a bunch of people that I knew in person, face to face in person, tried to claim, oh, no, 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 no. This, you know, those who were possibly Republicans, or they didn't really discuss that, they were just, oh, no, it can't be that bad. And it's like, no, it's this bad. It is. And I'm letting you know, this is how it is. This is, like, I've seen this before. I'm born and raised in New Jersey. You have no idea about some of the stuff. You know, look at like the 1960s and 1970s. In the 1980s and 1990s, there were a bunch of yuppies. And so these yuppies were problematic in a bunch of ways because they were like, oh, we've been out to here and we've done this and so on and so forth. And then that's before Y2K, which I refuse to be a part of. I refuse to assist Y2K. Because they wanted to try to well, I shouldn't say prevent, they wanted to try to pretend that they were innocent in comparison to what they were. And it was, nope, I refuse. I refuse. You are going to take accountability for your stupidity because that's your responsibility. There's just no excuse, I don't care. And since I have been on the ground floor regarding coding in the mid-1980s and have done coding all the way through to 1998 more officially, despite the length of, I refuse. You can't have that without me. And so I will just, nope, I am taking a stand on that. Because I had already dealt with certain things because of my viewpoint. And this is back in the 1980s and 1990s. Because those who don't realize as far as bureaucracy and legalities, okay, remember my biological mother was a deacon, and my biological father was a trustee. I took a stand against the basement. And I didn't care what any of the children as to the other deacons and other trustees, I didn't care about their feelings. I didn't care about their opinions. I was accurate back then. I'm obviously accurate now. And so it meant nothing. They tried to make fun of me as far as that was concerned. They tried ostracizing me first. I just went walking, and then when they saw me speaking with certain people, then it was, Mr. Hop, Mrs. Hop, do you know who your daughter's talking to? Do you know this? These guys in the black suits. And it's because I took my stand. And there were other aspects as well in regards to some of the situations as to the oceanic waters and some of the stuff that I dealt with in the backyard as to the house in New Jersey, and whatever it is what it is. And so those particular factors were as they were. And so when they had actually not realized, it was one of those, that's fine. You think that I need to be around you. I don't actually. I don't need you to that level. I don't physically have to be around you. You are not as important to me as you think you are. And so I dealt with that political crap in a church. You cannot go lower in regards to what is supposed to be considered humanity than when you are in a church congregation and that crap is going on as far as a church congregation, especially that size. So while those people had been as they had, it was one of those, no. You have a haughty, egotistical, self-important viewpoint of yourselves in comparison to what I know of you. I don't want to have anything to do with you. So in regards to one of the video links that it will be in the information section, one of the individuals on the Will Kane show had brought up that he had grown up watching certain comedians and stuff like that, and then as things came out. Well, in regards of all of my books, in reference to the publishing and having that bibliography of all of my books as to both the, truth books compared to the fiction genre books, I didn't know, and I don't know what the video link is to the males who are talking about that in that video link in the information section of this official YouTube video of mine. I don't know when some of that came out. I had known in reference to my books and my book series, as far as the fiction genre, that, I could see how some of it might, whatever, but in regards to my truth books, and then because I had authored books in regards of, because of different genres in the fiction genre, I had authored books that are children's books. I had authored a scary book series, and I authored a, adult-ish, depending on which book of the book series. And so I didn't ever want, in regards of my bibliography, I didn't want to ever hide that. And so what some of the stuff was discussed in that particular video link, there's that. Because I had already met plenty of millennials. I was born and raised in the 1980s in the tri-state area. So I already met the earliest generations of millennials. I was not taking any chances when it came to certain things. So this is this is that. I'm not. And then, because despite how situations went in regards of my son and my daughter, no, this is, you go right ahead. You, no matter what anybody else says, here's the truth. You have this, this is who I am. I haven't done anything in regards of certain things. You have to be capable to distinguish between whoever or whatever, because remember, I didn't introduce you to just anybody. I did the opposite. So while if you're, in regards of whichever side of your biological side introduced you to people that I did not give permission to, remember that. I did not ever give permission for anybody to introduce you to anybody. So if they decided to do that, you know for a fact this is it. So Better be capable to distinguish. That is extremely important. I will not, I repeat, I will not do what I have dealt with to my own. So here, this is that. Because that sort of garbage, I have human decency. My biological mother and biological little sister and whatever they whispered in the ear of my biological father, absolutely not. I'm not playing. I don't do that sort of garbage. And as far as my ex-in-laws, they can go fuck themselves as far as my personal opinion, because I don't need anything regarding that. I didn't invite them in my life. They thought whatever they thought of themselves in comparison. So in regards to my son and my daughter, that you know how that goes, and you know how to annoy them to get answers. Because you know how they are. You know their patterns of behavior, and so you are capable to get the truth for yourselves as well as your friends. Because you can, because I know better. People didn't believe me beforehand, you will have that capability for that clarity. I will not be one of those types of parents. Thank you very much. And so, I can be a smidgen stubborn. So in that reference of being stubborn, just a little bit, so, you know, in Austin, in the year of 2020, to the rallies and stuff like that, it's, yeah, okay, whatever, this is that. And so I was informed of this Rennie type, and it's, okay, well, from 2005 all the way through to 2008, and then 2008 through the 2012, multiple discussions in person, face-to-face in person, as far as these situations that I dealt with. And a bunch of these Rennie types were like, oh, well, we'll get you to like Renaissance fairs. No, you won't. Not after what I dealt with. So there were two males that I had met at Bandera and 410, that IHOP out there, and we were in the smoking section. And I had like the one that I kind of dated. He was okay, you know. We didn't date very long, but it was as it was during that time frame. And his friend, though, he had tried to defend Renaissance fairs. And it's no, not with what I dealt with. And so I explained to the 5 males as far as who jumped out of the trees in that situation. He's like, well, you know, you're just a badass for, you know. No, I don't care. You think that's acceptable, that's the problem. If you think it's acceptable to do that sort of garbage, knowing these facts, that lets you know that you haven't evolved. So when you take in consideration as to the foundation of the United States of America, no. We, as in regards of the current time frame of 2022, we are here to be a beacon of hope where we actually begin to work with others to progress the world forward. So that way, as science and technology, as well as all these other factors that human beings have the capacity of working with and utilizing, are capable to progress life. You know, within modest aspects as to morals and ethics. And so, no. There is nothing moral, there is nothing ethical about 5 males jumping out of trees with weapons in their hands, and there is nothing moral and there is nothing ethical about me having to defend myself that much. No matter what you try to convince yourself of being whatever, that's not chivalry, that is cowardice. That is not in any capacity of any human decency. Knowing on top of the fact that I hadn't ever been to a Renaissance fair before then, and then obviously since then, this male with the green hair, he was all, well, you know, you could just, no, I don't care what you want to try to convince yourself of. You will not ever get me to ever willingly go to a Renaissance fair ever again because of how that went. It was to that level, that bad. Daytime as well as evening time, the just nothing about it. at all. Go look at my prior official YouTube video of mine. I'll put the link in so that way you can think about the additional factors in regards of the information section for this official YouTube video of mine, because it is something to truthfully consider. And so I dealt with, from that time frame, different individuals. I spoke with all sorts of people. So there was a situation at 410 Marbach Gyms with a San Antonio police officer, and that situation, and those needless problems. And then there were other situations, and it's one of those, I'm not playing with you. You have no idea, because if you have a pogue employment where you don't actually know what it is, as far as, and okay, I didn't graduate basic training. I don't need to graduate basic training to have common sense about certain things as to infantry, cavalry, combat arms, and MPs that have been stationed overseas and then come back to the United States of America. So I gave warnings in every capacity. I had all sorts of males, especially males that were like, I have done this and I have, yeah, that's cool that you have. This is what these Rennie types have done. These Rennie types, they don't, you know how your whatever or whatever is, and because you know how your whatever or whatever is, they are as they are. They have not learned to distinguish. They are heathens. They are just pure heathens. They make fun of military guys, and yet they go and do this in the campsites. This is what occurred. This is how this went. A bunch of guys, different generations of military guys and law enforcement. Oh, it can't be that bad. I guarantee you, they won't distinguish whether male or female. They don't see that. They just do this stupid garbage crap. And so there is a guy that I had spoken with when I was back in Texas, and he had talked about this one particular Rennie situation, and it's like, yeah, that's how they are. Yeah. And just think, they've had children. Just think about that. And just think, look at however long these things have been going on. This is 2022. This is No, medieval and Renaissance times were before the point in time, around also the point in time, where the Puritans were like, no, I'm out. This ocean is safer than being around your type. Bye. Goodbye. No, going out in what's considered the Atlantic area of the oceanic waters, we'll go here and whatever, we'll go along with the current because that's better than being around you. Period. And so in San Antonio, I dealt with random Rennie types all the way from 2005 through 2008. All these little whatevers that thought that they had whatever in comparison, it's the irony is they try to do certain things, YOLOing or whatever, and it's, no, go ahead. In comparison to other areas, go ahead and use your technology. Keep that in mind. Go ahead. I don't recommend you do it, but go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and self-incriminate yourself, because that's what you're doing. And a bunch of people were like, no, and I told them, only white people do that. Only white people are like, selfie time, while in the middle, apparently that's the term, in the middle of doing that. And so, the different situations were as they were, and it's like, no. You think you're smart. No, you're not. So again, back in regards of the foundation of the United States of America, sure, there's been historical whatever. That's in every continent. That's not just the United States of America. That's every continent. It's just whether or not they have a written record of it. That's what people have needed to take in consideration. Because if they don't have a written record of that in comparison to the United States of America, that lets you know that. So this is just the reality. So, no, this Atlantic area of the ocean, yeah, sure, you know, the current probably took them from wherever in Eurasia down to Africa before the current system pushed them whichever way it went, because, you know, common sense in regards to the oceanic waters. But that's safer than being around your type. Think about that. And this is back in the 1400s. Yeah, these boats, whatever, bye. So then you have the DFW area. So what people didn't know back then is that I had attended St. John Vianney High School, which is a Catholic parochial high school in Illinois, or not before I had been moved to Illinois. I went 2.5 years in the state of New Jersey. I don't know if anybody knows how Catholics are in New Jersey when it comes, that particular high school is a smidge. It's not like, you know, I don't know what Catholic high schools are like but you know, you have to have a little bit of a I was baptized Presbyterian after being baptized Methodist. And so you just take that in consideration, that I was accepted to attend St. John Vianney High School. And since I've dealt with in Illinois, I know how people are from New Jersey. They were Italians up in that Catholic high school. You know, for as many that were like, oh, whatever, I am not 100% Italian. I have some Italian in me. I have a percentage of. You go ahead. You let those Italians know that I am not lying and telling you go right ahead. You go right ahead. You go tell them that I am respecting their background. You go right ahead. You let them know. That's fine. Yeah, and not in a female way. That's fine. I'm okay with that. No, you go and be like, guess what, Italians? This female wasn't actually saying she was a part of the mafia, even though we accused her of it. Because we know how people are from New Jersey. You just think about that. She just denied being 100% Italian. 100% Italians. You just think about that. You know, like... Yeah, go ahead, go do that. You go, I don't recommend it, but you can. You're gonna piss some Italians off doing it that way though, especially the way the Illinois is. I know how people are from New Jersey. Yeah, you go let them know that. You go ahead, go right ahead, that's fine. I'm gonna go over here. That's fine, that's fine. You go right ahead, that's fine. You let them know. You let them know that I was respectful. You go right ahead. You tell them that I was respectful. You go right ahead. You know, whatever. Hypothetically. And so, in that reference, whatever it is, that's fine. That's fine. So, in the reference of these Rennie types, so then in Carrollton, well, I have not only the fact of St. John Vianney High School. Okay, I didn't graduate high school at St. John Vianney High School, but I still attended. And then because I had went through the entire confirmation class and graduated, my biological mother was a deacon, my biological father was a trustee, and you can take a look at my 26 scuba diving certifications I earned from essentially in the month of February through November, but it was technically October, September of 2009. Just think of how much extra studying I did in regards of before my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. My grandma Gavin actually went to seminary college, and so I'm a fast reader. So, you know, at a seminary college, she's like, yeah, well, you know, while you say, here's a book. Oh, I'll just read the whole college textbook. You know, at a seminary college, that's fine. No, that's interesting. Oh, okay. So, you know, I learned a few things, all right? That's fine. However many books there are, I'm a fairly swift reader. And that was and I'm talking now, in 2022, before my head injury. You know, I mean, you can take in consideration both the dominant mentor program as well as my 26 scuba diving certifications. And, you know, I kind of have done a little extra homework for myself so that way I could understand and comprehend. So, you know, in Carrollton, Texas, you know, yeah, sure, I had fairies and dragons and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I actually also know the significance behind all of the history, and I know where it came from, and I know this, and so on and so forth, and I have the comprehension. So, you know, whatever. Wasn't just Sunday school classes, thank you very much. And I'm an ordained reverend, excuse you. And at Old Tennant Presbyterian Church, we had rabbis each and every Passover and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur that came out to Old Tennant Presbyterian Church. We met in Neff Chapel, but it is what it is. So, you know, there you go. Have a bit of a understanding. Thank you. But then I dealt with the Rennie types, and the DFW is supposed to be consenting adult lifestyle and that sort of stuff. And then in Austin, Texas, which is not far from Bastrop County, which is where Smithville, Texas is. Yeah, no, these Rennie types are horrific. These Rennie types are horrible. These Rennie types do this, these Rennie types do that, these Rennie types are this way in comparison. Maybe one day they'll grow up, because these Rennie types, I don't care. Go ahead and tell me. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know that tattoos look like I drew all over myself. No kidding. No kidding. You know what? You know what? Maybe that's a thing. You know, maybe, just maybe, that's a possibility that people who have had tattoos could look like they have drawn on, you know, they actually have an artist do it, but it is what it is. Nonetheless, yeah, no joke. No way, no way. You're telling me you just figured that out. How many years old are you? How many years old? You just figured that out. Good morning. Yeah, wake up, sunshine. Yeah. Yeah, good morning. Stupid. But instead, it was just, yeah, well, you know. Why don't you tell me something I didn't already tell you? And so, you know, then I dealt with in regards of back, and not so much the second time in the Irving area, though in San Antonio, certain people as far as discussing the Rennie types. And it's like, no. So then, think about this, okay? So after the Stoney LaRue concert, March of 2013, and the situations as to the Fort Worth Zoo and all those problems regarding Carrollton, Texas, the culmination of, and if they go scuba diving, you just think about these Rennie types going scuba diving, because anybody who's ever had a situation regarding Renaissance fair types or the Rennies, just think if they get involved with scuba diving. Just think about that. You just think about that. And then just think about, you know, where water would be that they go scuba diving. But I had the nerve to take a stand and be like, yeah, no, like water's kind of important. I don't know if people know this or not. Water kind of assists making a few things. You know, coffee is the most important meal of the day, in my opinion, but you also need water for a few other things, like food. You know, if you like vegetables and fruits, guess what you need a lot of? You need a whole bunch of water, because in comparison to meat, like those fruits and vegetables, do you have any idea how much water it takes to produce apples on one tree? That's a full-grown tree. Do you know how much water it takes to grow oranges? Like regular size oranges, not the little clementines, the regular size ones. Do you know how much water that takes? Because it's a lot if you don't know. Do you know how much water it takes to grow carrots? Do you have any idea how much water it takes to grow collards and spinach? Do you know how much water it takes to grow cucumbers? Do you know how much water it takes to grow honeydew or watermelon? I mean, it's literally in the name, watermelon. You need a lot of water. use your melon correctly, right? So, think, can you do that? Do you know how much water it takes to grow peaches? Do you know how much water it takes to grow anything at all? Think! Do you have this capacity? And so just pointing this out there, but a bunch of people in 2009, after I went scuba diving as far as the Vandenberg, in comparison to taking me seriously at that time, they're, oh, well, whatever, because I brought up scuba diving law enforcement, because, oh, well, you hippy-dippy types, you little vegans and vegetarians, you should probably really care about that, because they go, those Rennie types, they go scuba diving, some of them maybe. You just think about that. You know how your Rennie types are. You just think about that. You just think about that. And they go near water. You just think about that. You think about that. You're gonna go complain about some cows. Psh, you should really think about that in comparison. I mean, sure, cows pretty much eat hay. It's pretty much what they eat. They have certain feed, but they pretty much eat grass and hay. In comparison, they don't, just pointing that out there. That's why you have, just pointing that out there. So, I mean, it's literally one of those, like, think about this. Do you have any idea? And so, just pointing that out there. So, so then in Washington State, so in the modern day book, in my book section is for the link to purchase through Amazon on my website, www.susanmeeling.com, which is the same as www.ladydorybell.com. In Washington State, above the Mason-Dixon line, there was a situation when I went from Washington State to Portland, Oregon, and Clackamas as to Geek Squad and Best Buy, as to the alarms that went off to the electrical stuff. I also wrote about, though you could also see pictures and videos in regards of 2019 and 2020, where in the time frame of, I think it was 2015, is when I started having the area above my ears waxed. So for those who don't know what waxing is, as far as here and here, as well as the back of my head, it is hot, and so wax that is melted is spread along an area where a piece of muslin cloth is pushed into the skin, and then you rip that piece of whatever, where each of those hair follicles are ripped out of the scalp. That was less painful than dealing with the electrical stuff at that time. Each week, from 2015 into 2016, into 2017, into 2018, into 2019. And because of the residual stuff that I had been dealing with, which, people I once knew in person, face-to-face in person, didn't take me seriously at the time. I wasn't joking. It wasn't a game at all. I was serious the entire time. And so, had that done, was as it was. So think about that. And then at Sapphire, there's a female who showed up, I think it was 2016 or 2017, who had run Renaissance fairs and had been a Rennie type in regards of Washington State and Oregon State, who tried to convince me that no. So think about this. I was sitting inside of the office regarding Club Sapphire, which at that point in time, I don't know whether or not the technology company was across the hallway, though I was inside of the business office. Then there's the stuff as far as the towers, as far as cell phone, whatever, SeaTac International Airport nearby and all that, and this Rennie type tries to convince me to go to another Renaissance fair in comparison, and I'm like, no. Absolutely not. I refuse. Think about that to that level. while dealing with everything else that was going on at that time, what I had already dealt with because of whatever, that type of Rennie, nope, I refuse. 100% refuse. So take in consideration the modern day book as far as some of the descriptions. I would guesstimate that I might be a smidgen accurate as to a few descriptions in honesty, as to any needless problem that has occurred. So this is how long this has gone on. I have written about quite a few things and all that sort of stuff. I have made official reports. So my official YouTube channel is official. It's not a joke, it's serious this whole time. Unlike some people, I haven't had the luxury to play stupid games. When you deal with the after effects of a head injury where you had a subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of your brain that took 8.5 years to dissipate, there is no luxury in regards of stupid, childish games as a biological adult. That is something that those Rennie types have needed to accept. I haven't had that luxury. Good for you, you have, but keep that shit away from me. Do not bother, because just as similarly as to the other garbage is, what is it, the live action role play, keep that shit away from me. Don't bother me with that. I don't have that luxury. That is a needless situation. So those types just accept that. And in the reference of my choice, if you are a Democrat, my choice. Because if you're to try in regards of just because I'm a Republican, no, it doesn't change the fact it's still my choice. So no translates to no. No, you don't have the right to involve yourself with my stuff. No, you didn't have the right in regards of causing any needless drama. No, you didn't have the right to play any needless games. No, that is not mature. And so in regards of what's supposed to be the consenting adult lifestyle, instead, you have these Rennie types that showed up to Club Sapphire. In comparison, I'm not interested in that. So if you take in the viewpoint of regarding the foundation of the United States of America, yeah, no, your hypocrisy and your bureaucracy, I don't want to have anything to do with. Don't ever bother me again, as far as that's concerned. I shouldn't have to have went through the lengths of. But that shows no different in regards to those needless problems. Then take in consideration, when I got back to the state of Texas, I had some Rennie types that wanted me to go to a Renaissance. No, I don't care I don't care. No, you're not going to convince me. I don't view that way. So just accept that. Just agree to disagree, because that is called maturity. If you try to continue in that capacity, you are not worth my time to be around in any way. That is ignorance in that reference as to what I dealt with as a child and a teenager. I don't need that. So while you might think of yourselves to whatever level of, you are just not. And then when you take in consideration the formation of the US Space Force with the knowledge that NASA has been around a while, yeah, why don't you stop with those needless games and grow up? Because there is nothing that is of any enjoyment to me personally as to those types at all. And so if you think about it as to the amount of times, so there's the social media, there's the cell phone towers. I brought this up in regards to the modern day book. As far as well, my journal blog updates in regards to the ornery PSA on my website, www.susanbling.com, which is the same as www.ladydoribelle.com. Keep that in mind. As far as 2019 into 2020, 2021, and this is 2022, I was kind. I was compassionate. I had humanity to go and actually take the time to warn you as to what I had already warned you about before. In comparison, while also making sure my daughter was taken care of, after my family was destroyed and what was a home to me was destroyed. So don't pretend that your bureaucracy and hypocrisy are anything other than heathenism. Don't ever pretend that ever again. This is the year of 2022. You willingly go and immerse yourself pretending in regards of those Rennie types. No, thank you. I'm not interested in that. There have been advances in science and technology which was supposed to assist to progress human beings with humanity, not heathenism. So, but that's my opinion as far as that's concerned. How many of those types of, in regards of the video link, what's patriotism to them? Realistically, you wouldn't have the allowance to have your stupid little Rennie type situations without the military, the founding of the United States of America. You wouldn't be allowed that. So what is your actual positive contribution to progression forward? Realistically, what have you achieved that would actually assist to progress humanity? Actual humanity. So I saw a meme, and this meme had brought up where being fake is a lifestyle or something. Yeah, those Rennie types. Yeah, I guess so. In comparison, and so if those fake types really got into what's supposed to be considered the consenting adult lifestyle, are you the reasons regarding in the modern time of what happened in the 1960s and 1970s into the 1980s and 1990s? Because if you're those Rennie types, as to if Renaissance fairs began at I don't know what year or decade they began. However, if you take in consideration of, I lost a lot of people, and I'm not talking in the way that Gutfeld's show was discussing between Kat Timpf and Kennedy as to what was brought up. There's an individual who Gutfeld had said is from New Jersey. If he was in New Jersey in the 1980s and 1990s, he might remember as to the large numbers in the early 1990s is when it began in New Jersey. But I was growing up going out to New York City in the 5 boroughs, as well as Pittsburgh and Philadelphia in Pennsylvania in the 1980s and 1990s. So I saw that firsthand in comparison to a news article. So, that's the viewpoint to take in consideration. So if in that capacity of those Rennie types, Well, if being fake is a lifestyle for you, I don't consent to that. And you won't ever get me to knowingly consent to that. Which knowingly is the important part as to consenting. Because if it is without being informed officially, there is not the capacity of actually consenting, which goes against everything and everything, including your own bureaucracy, because of the legal paperwork nowadays. So that automatically shows you your own hypocrisy, in my opinion, though with the proof of. So yeah, I'm sure in Washington State, in Seattle, my website that I put my business cards, because I had permission to do so. And yes, I went to my chiropractor and spoke with him and his wife, as well as the staff, as to my opinion regarding why I was voting for who became 45. I knew he was going to become 45, as far as I was concerned. And I also knew that there were certain situations, not just in reference to the Republican aspect, not just in reference to 45, though not denying that I voted for 45 in regards to the 2020 timeframe. Because the majority of scuba divers, remember in 2009, they were Democrats. And so I dealt with that, my biological mother, biological sister, biological father, as far as that's concerned, that whatever, in conjunction to my ex-in-laws. And I'm a Republican. So, just pointing that out there. Because for those who don't remember, in the 1990s, when 42 was in office, there were problems with the finances for active duty National Guard and reservists. There was also the situation to where Hillary had the knowledge regarding the investigation as to Monica Lewinsky and a few others. Now, if they had an open marriage, again, if they met in the 1960s or 1970s, she easily, as well as him, could have easily come out and said, yeah, we have whatever of whatever, if they had agreed to that. However, if they didn't agree to that, I understand as to why she would, take a step to the side and be like, no, we didn't agree to it. He chose to do his things as he chose to do his things, and he's going to deal with that because of his whatever. I could see both sides. But if it was where there was an arrangement, again, 1960s, 1970s, please, there is that to take in consideration. But in order to be in what's supposed to be the adult consenting lifestyle, you actually have to have that discussion. So if you're in an actual relationship with an individual, you have to have that discussion with the individual, in comparison to thinking some hippy-dippy crap. I'm just pointing that out there. That's just the reality. And so I'm very specific as far as that's concerned. And so I don't have that leeway that I give as to those types. I actually told people at Sapphire about this. I told them that despite how I wound up in Washington State, so on and so forth, I would discuss it to the point that, and I didn't care if it annoyed him at all. I would rather the truth in comparison, because then you cannot ever pretend that you weren't informed. And if you chose to withhold information, I don't need that at all, whatsoever. That's not assistive in any capacity, and that's not a relationship either. Just for that clarification. If you don't have in-person, face-to-face, in-person discussions with who you, whatever, as far as a relationship is concerned, that is different between acquaintances and friendships. You could have whatever level of, but actual dating type of relationship, so on and so forth, that doesn't occur without that in-person, face-to-face, in-person on a consistent basis, not on what your convenience is. You could take a long walk off a short pier into Piranha Infested Waters because I ain't fucking dealing with that. I'm not interested in that type. Because that's not a relationship that is ever worth my time. At all. That's not a relationship, obviously. You must be one of those Rennie types that would think that would be acceptable in comparison, and you'd be ignorant for that as well. Because I'm actually better than that. You must because if you actually appreciate me, you as in that way wouldn't ever be that type at all. I am not interested in that type ever. Those Rennie types are not of any value in actuality to me. I have actual standards. Obviously, those Rennie types don't. That's why the hypocritical, heathenistic worthlessness of, in my opinion. So, you know, since that showed up to Club Sapphire in an area, as much technology in that area. Wow. I mean, just think, there's just all of the electrical aspects, the different towers, the companies, as far as that's concerned. You got all sorts of people who are into that Tesla stuff, so on and so forth. You got Microsoft out there, you got Silicon Valley all along the West Coast. Please. If you couldn't put that together, Rennie types, good morning. Cell phone towers, 6th of June, 2022. Good morning and welcome to the future because it's here. Today is the 2nd of July, 2022. You guys have a good day. 2 July 2022.